Betrayal. At this point in your life, you've probably felt betrayed at one time or another. But what does it really mean?
I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. Every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trust and the more we depend on someone, the deeper the betrayal. So a child, for example, when their parent does something horrible, that's going to have a very different impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret, your coworker taking credit for your idea. You feel it, but it doesn't hit you in quite the same way.
In this episode, I talk with Dr. Debi Silber about betrayal and the 5 stages taking you from that betrayal to transformation, and how you can actually use that most difficult time to completely reinvent your life. This is the Grown Ass Woman's Guide. I'm your host and guide, Jackie McDougall. Menopause is unavoidable, but suffering? Yeah, that's optional. Kindra is redefining menopause with science-backed products, education, and my favorite thing, community. Whether you're wondering if you're at the early stages of perimenopause or you have already been there, done that, Kindra is committed to helping us all be the best versions of ourselves.
When you have simple things that can help you take care of yourself, that make you a better you, because that's really what we're ultimately all after, why not take advantage of those?
Get 20% off site-wide at ourkindra.com with promo code GAW20. That's ourkindra.com, promo code GAW20. Dr. Debi Silber is the founder of the PBT Institute, standing for Post-Betrayal Transformation. She's a holistic psychologist and personal development expert. She's the author of Trust Again and is a 2-time #1 international bestselling author of The Unshakable Woman and From Hardened to Healed, The Effortless Path to Release Resistance, Get Unstuck, and Create a Life You Love. She recently conducted a PhD study on how we experience betrayal and made 3 groundbreaking discoveries along the way. Dr. Debi continues to collect data on betrayal that helps her really understand the physical, emotional, mental impacts that it leaves on our bodies, souls, and minds.
We've had easily 40,000 people take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. Every few months, I pull the stats from the quiz just to see how people land. We've had every age represented here, men, women, just about every country. 78%, this is out of 40,000 plus people, constantly revisit their experience. There is this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, emotional, so common to betrayal, it's known as post-betrayal syndrome. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. 94% deal with painful triggers. Those triggers can take you right down. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. Those are your adrenals, they crashed. 47% have weight changes. In the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're using food for comfort. 45% have a digestive issue. Anything, Crohn's, IBS, constipation, diarrhea, diverticulitis, you name it. The most common mental symptoms. 78% are overwhelmed. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 68% are unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% are unable to concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, and you're supposed to raise your kids, and you're supposed to work. That's not even the emotional issues. Emotionally, 88% have extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. 82% are hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed. Here's why I wrote the book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
And here's what's really fascinating. Betrayal symptoms don't just go away. You have to actively work to heal them. We're not talking about betrayal that happened last week or last month or even last year. We're talking about betrayal that has happened sometime in their lifetime.
It could be decades ago. We've all been taught time heals all wounds. When it comes to betrayal, that's not true. There's a question that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago, I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 15 years ago, it feels like it happened yesterday. So we know betrayal hits us in a very different way.
And like so many people out there doing incredible professional work, for Dr. Debi, it started off as very personal. How did you get into this work? There had to be some sort of betrayal that you experienced, yeah?
Of course. Well, it's my 30th year in business. And as life would morph and change, well, so would business. So I started in health and then mindset and then personal development and then had a really painful family betrayal. And I thought I did everything I needed to do to heal. And then a few years later, it happened again. This time it was my husband. So I was shocked, blindsided, like anybody who's been through it. So got him out of the house because that was the deal breaker. And here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I'm like, you know what? I was 50. I said, we're going back for a PhD. I felt so compelled to do this. I had no idea why. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to manage the time, but it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential, because I was changing so much. I didn't quite understand it. He was too on his own, wasn't ready to look at that. And so I moved through this program and I had no idea what was going to show up, but then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my business, my family, my life.
I think that's a very relatable circumstance. Mm-hmm. Women who have been married a long time, a spouse, there's a betrayal there. And often you see them talking about that betrayal. You can feel it off of them. And you think, wow, this must have happened 6 months ago. And you find out it's 25 years ago.
Yep.
And so what do you think was inside you that took that circumstance to actually go back to school and get a PhD?
You know, clearly this is the work I'm supposed to be doing. Because I looked at it and I said, okay, well, the most important people in my life, the people I trusted and respected the most, all betrayed me. I'm either the poster child for this or there's something I'm supposed to be doing with it. And I'll never forget moving through the program and thinking to myself, if I can heal from this, I'm taking everyone with me. That's just it. And what was so exciting, out of the 3 discoveries, we found that while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, like what we're talking about, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome to this whole healed state of post-betrayal transformation. I can talk about that after. We're going to go through 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we even know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. So healing truly is predictable. When I learned about those stages and that most people get stuck in stage 3, I realized that's what's going to keep me stuck. And there's no way I'm doing that. No way. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing to get out of this, but I know this is going to keep me stuck. So the first stage is like a setup stage. And I saw this with everybody, me too. If you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody was a real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, the thinking and doing, not really prioritizing the emotional and the spiritual, the feeling and being. So imagine that table with only 2 legs, easy for that table to topple over, and that's us. That's not to say if you're just busy, you'll be betrayed. It was just the typical profile I saw. Stage 2, by far the scariest of all of the stages. And this is shock. This is D-Day, Discovery Day. And it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. Here's like where you get the news. We've just ignited the stress response. You're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You can't wrap your mind around what you just learned. Makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that prevent chaos and govern you. Don't go there, trust this person, this is how life works. And in a moment, every rule you've ever known to be real and true is no longer. The bottom is bottomed out and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
That one person's behavior, one person, one flawed human being's behavior can absolutely change our worldview of what trust and loyalty and all of it.
All of it. Because think about it. If the person you trusted the most proved untrustworthy, who can you trust? And then you say, I can't even trust myself. Where was I during all this? How did I not see? How did I not know? So if I can't trust that person I trusted the most, and I don't trust myself, how the heck am I going to trust anybody else or in anything else?
Yeah.
So it shatters the entire paradigm.
Okay. But
if you were, let's say, walking down the street and the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything and everything you could to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? But here's the trap. Once you've figured out how to survive, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, you think it's good. And because you have no idea there's a stage 4 or stage 5, transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. So because you don't know there's anywhere else to go, you figure, okay, I better make this work. And you start planting roots here you're not supposed to, but you don't know that. And then 4 things happen. The first thing is we get all those small self benefits. You get to be right. You get your story. You get someone to blame. You get a target for your anger. You get sympathy from everybody you tell your story to, right?
Yeah.
So you start planting deeper roots here. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. Now, because you're here longer than you're supposed to be, your mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you're not really that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots.
Right.
Now, because these are the thoughts you're thinking and you're here a while, like energy attracts like energy. So now you're attracting people and circumstances and relationships towards you to confirm, yep, this is where you belong. Deeper roots. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know there's anything better. Right here is where you resign yourself. You're like, this stinks, but I have to make this work.
Right.
It's so painful and you don't know how to remove yourself from it. So right here is where you start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy to numb, avoid, and distract yourself from what's so painful. So think about it. You do that for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And to your point, I could see someone 20 years out and say, that emotional eating you're doing, or that drinking you're doing, that numbing in front of the TV, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. They'd say, it happened 20 years ago, but all they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. That makes sense?
Yes, absolutely. Do you think also that when we're in that place and other people around us, our girlfriends, our sisters or whatever, are like, wow, you're so strong, you're moving on, you're great because now you're independent, you're doing everything you have to do, that now you're getting sort of positive reinforcement as well, that you have gotten past it, that you've gotten through it, that you're surviving.
Yeah.
Do you think that that has anything to do with it?
The support, it can make you or break you in this stage right here. And the wrong support does more harm than good. We have a lot of people coming into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma. If that therapist isn't highly skilled and how to move someone through betrayal, does more harm than good.
Interesting.
But it could also be a well-meaning friend where they're like, go you, you're over it. That's amazing. And they're not just yet. And so then they feel shame or they're embarrassed.
When we can function through something that's traumatic like that people then start to pat you on the back that you're functioning. Then maybe you start to think, oh, is this all there is? Functioning after betrayal.
That's it. And that's that stage 3. And, it's interesting because in trust, again, I move people through the 5 stages, right? But I found that everybody's getting stuck in stage 3. So from harden to heal, this is just for stage 3. I was like, what, stage 3ers, I'm coming for you because
that's
worst,
fantastic.
because the worst of it happened already. You owe it to yourself to move through stages 4 and stage 5. That's where your new life begins.
So let's dive into that personal transformation, stages 4 and 5.
So most people land, and if they're unaware, stay in stage 3. You can just see it. Then you have the people confirming this is where you belong. You have relationships in this space. Your health takes a dive. It's just this big downward negative spiral, and you don't know there's anything else. That's where most people stay. If you're willing to let go of the small self benefits, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo my experience, but I control what I do with it. And I always use the example of if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, your stuff's not all there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's going to be okay. And when you're in that mental space, what you do is you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but you stop the massive damage you were causing in stage 2 and stage 3. What's interesting about stage 4 also is if you were to move, you don't take everything. You don't take the things that don't represent who you want to be the minute you're in that new space. And what I found was if your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. Right here is where you've outgrown them. People say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come. You don't bring them. When you're in this place, in this mental space, and you make it cozy, you make it home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview.
Right.
The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. Your mind is healing. You're making new rules. You're making new boundaries. based on your experience, and you have a completely new worldview based on everything you've just been through and the road you see so clearly now. And the four legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
I have some follow-up questions. So stage 4, real quick.
Yeah.
You're letting go of friends. You're starting to build that new normal. Is there another level of grief, loss?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's actually one of the things that needs to happen between stages 3 to move you to stage 4. It's the loss of expectations. It's the loss of relationship. It's the loss of everything you wanted and you didn't receive, or just the change. It's a tremendous amount of grief. Even grief for like you're in a club you never wanted to be in. But this is the gift in all of it. Now I know your listeners are like, gift, this woman's crazy. No, it's really true. Here's the gift. Healing is always a choice. Whether you rebuild yourself and move on and create this rock solid version of yourself that never would have had an opportunity to show up had that not happened, right? That's what I did with my family. It just wasn't an option to heal with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something entirely new. Like I'm talking from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. And that's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as 2 totally different people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows.
Really?
New dress. 4 kids as our bridal party. Yeah. And here's the thing. Betrayal will show you who someone truly is, or it will wake them up to who they've become. It is a beautiful opportunity on their end as well. Oh, trust me, if I wasn't totally different, and for sure, if he wasn't totally different, the deal was done. That was the deal breaker.
Right.
But people are so afraid of that death and destruction of the old. But that's the only way you can birth the new. You can't otherwise. And I see people trying to patch it up. It doesn't work.
So why do some people just never reach that place of healing? Dr. Debi's study uncovers that answer.
3 groups in the study who did not heal. The first group, this was the group who just refused to accept their betrayal. They had their story, they were sticking with it.
Yeah.
The stage 3ers, right? The second group, this was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. May have made the day a bit easier. They ran to the doctor who put them on a mood stabilizer or anti-anxiety medication or whatever, but they didn't heal. And then the third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences. So whether it was out of fear of change, not wanting to break up a family, financial fear, religious reasons, that was a big one. They just tried to put it behind them. I saw 2 things with this group. The first was a further deterioration of the relationship. The second, this group was the most physically sick. Your broken heart can't handle that. But they think it's easier that way. Tell that to your broken heart. Your body can't handle it. And I get it. It's terrifying. That was the deal breaker. And when I got my husband out of the house, I was like, I didn't sign up for this. This wasn't the plan. But okay, I have no idea what's going to show up, but I'm just going to put my head down and I'm not picking it back up till I'm on the other side of this thing. And he did the same.
And the fact that he did the same, he took his own personal responsibility for how he changed or his behavior. So that brings me to this, though. You see people who go through betrayal. Oftentimes you find them in one of 2 camps. One of them is, I have no responsibility in this whatsoever. This person did this to me, and I am completely innocent. I'm not human. I have no flaws. And on the other side, the person who just completely berates themselves that they caused this, that they're not worthy, they're unlovable, they're not enough, all of those things.
Yeah.
How do you look at it when one has been betrayed? How do you look at that balance between personal responsibility and also being a victim of someone else's actions?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So the first way I'm going to answer it is by saying this: even though it happened to you, it's not about you. It's not. It's really not. This was someone else's lack, someone else's issue, someone else's something, and you were the unlikely recipient. That's the first thing. And if you have to say that to yourself 100 million times until you believe it, it's worth it because it's true. The second thing is, of course, we want to take responsibility, but we do not want to take the blame. We should not. You never need to take blame for someone else's actions. However, what I've seen and what I've experienced personally, and what we see within the PBT Institute all the time, there is an amazing opportunity here to learn something profound that is about us. Until and unless we do learn this powerful lesson, that you are worthy, deserving, lovable, that you need better boundaries in place, whatever it is. Until and unless you get that, you will keep having opportunities in the form of people to teach you. That's the part where it's our responsibility. Like for me, it was boundaries were always getting crossed. I never took my own needs seriously. So when I made that drastic move to go back for this PhD, I didn't know the first way I was going to do this. It was terrifying. But because it was the first thing I had ever done for me to show myself that I mattered, that was so big for me, lesson learned. So there's no reason to keep repeating it. So the part where we look at it as it's my fault, no, it's your opportunity. What in that experience could you benefit from learning?
Yes.
And here's the thing too. Within the 5 stages, there's a place where that fits. When we do things like that too early, like you go for forgiveness too early. Of course, we know forgiveness is just for us, but either way, you do that too early, it backfires every time. There's a time for all of it strategically within the 5 stages. We never need to take responsibility for someone else's actions. We don't want to, that's not our fault.
Right.
However, we do want to look at it and say, of course, how was I showing up in this? But more importantly, why did I bring this situation into my life because of something I need to learn? Not blame, opportunity.
Yeah. I love that. It's not your fault. It's your opportunity.
Absolutely.
Ugh, so powerful. So how do we get from being completely overcome with grief and anger and all of that into this place where you actually use betrayal in your institute to improve your life?
Not even to improve, to transform. I mean, betrayal lends itself to having you create an entirely new identity. You leave behind everything that no longer serves, and you create this version of you that never would have had an opportunity to show up had it not happened, right? So that was actually the first discovery. I was studying betrayal and post-traumatic growth. And for those who aren't familiar, post-traumatic growth is if you imagine like an upside of trauma, how any trauma, death of a loved one, disease, whatever it is, leaves you with a new insight, awareness, perspective you didn't have. Like, you lose someone you love, you realize life is short.
Yeah.
But I had been through death of a loved one. I'd been through disease. But I was like, betrayal feels different for me. I didn't want to assume it was the same for everybody. So I asked all my study participants and I said, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, is it different for you? Every single person said, oh my gosh, it's so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the whole self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Those are huge. They all get shattered. So it didn't quite qualify as post-traumatic growth. It was like when you rebuild your life and you rebuild yourself, it needed its own term, which is now called post-betrayal transformation, the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after betrayal. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, you are creating this post-betrayal transformation. That's the moving through the stage 5. And you're so different because of the complete and total shattering of the old. I'm not like the old version of me. This version of me has much different boundaries in place and has a level of confidence I never would have had otherwise. Think about it. The person or the people who gave us a sense of safety and security, those are the ones who shatter it. It's traumatizing, right? So when you rebuild from something like that, you're not the same.
Yeah. Obviously, they need to check out your institute, but what are some things that one can do today to start to move toward healing?
The first thing that comes to mind is we have the healed or hardened quiz. It shows you what stage you're in.
Okay.
So I would totally recommend it's just healedorhardenedquiz.com. That would be a great thing. And the other thing would be really to look at this as a launch pad where you say, okay, yes, it happened, but what can I create because of it? And I know it's such a different way to think, but you owe it to yourself. Otherwise, it's like a bad game of hot potato. You've gotten that deep pain and that trauma that comes from such profound hurt. I mean, I look at betrayal as one of the most painful of the human experiences. So why not move through the stages and see the version of you that's waiting for you?
Right. Because I think what we're looking for is comfort as quickly as possible. Right? To not feel so uncomfortable.
And I love the word you chose because it's true. We don't like getting uncomfortable. We just don't like it.
Yeah.
But there's a saying that I've been saying for my 30 years in business. And all my clients know it. My family knows that it works with any single situation. You ready? And all the listeners, you may want to write this down. That's my way of saying write this down. Hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later.
Yep.
Take your pick. It's going to be one of those two. So moving through betrayal to effectively go from the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome to that place of post-betrayal transformation, moving through the 5 stages is hard now, easy later. The easy now will only lead to the hard later, more of the same. You're stuck in stage 3 for 20, 30 years. That's not good. Yes, you lose your story, but you get a way better story. You become the hero or the heroine of your story. It's so much better, and you deserve that.
Absolutely. Do you find that when you go through these steps, you go through the process, that maybe if there's a betrayal later on in your life, that you can sort of spot it earlier and you could sort of move through the steps that much more quickly?
And your BS meter is so sharpened and so strong.
Oh, yeah.
You know, on one hand, you simply don't attract those type of people in your life. A repeat betrayal is a sign of an unhealed betrayal. We see an unhealed betrayal in work, in health, and relationships. So, for example, in relationships, I'll see it in one of 2 ways. A repeat betrayal. The faces change, but it's the same thing. So you go from boss to boss to boss, friend to friend to friend, partner to partner to partner. You're like, what the heck? Is it me? Yes, it is. It's you in that lesson has not been learned. You didn't realize yet, whatever it is for you. You are lovable, worthy, and deserving, whatever your lesson is. So you keep getting opportunities to learn that in the form of people. So if there's a repeat betrayal, know that it's an unhealed betrayal. The second way it shows up is we put the big wall up. We're like, you know what? That was just way too painful. I'm not doing that again. We think that's coming from a place of strength. It's not. It's coming from fear. It's like, my heart was so broken. That hurt so badly. I just want to keep everybody at bay.
Yeah.
And sure, you keep out the bad ones, but you keep out the good ones too.
Yeah. What kind of things have you seen in your clients who move into stage 5, who move into really a truly healed space?
Yeah.
What are some of the actual tangible things that they incorporated into their lives to get that transformation?
Yeah, it's physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, because you need to address all of this because it's all been affected. And so what they're doing is they're creating their own kind of recipe on each of those levels. And it's different for everyone, but it's really within all those different categories. And that's why someone may say, well, I've been to therapy, but that's only one level. And that's if that therapist is highly skilled in betrayal.
Right.
Or maybe they do one other physical thing. That's good, but the issues are in the tissues. What are you doing to, somatic body-based activities possibly to release it? So it really needs to be addressed on so many different levels.
Yeah. What kind of somatic body-based activities are you talking about?
It could be yoga. It could be Reiki. It could be EFT, tapping, brain spotting, EMDR, so many different things. And some really resonate with people and some they're like, I didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
And the truth is, that's where it's completely individualized. You find what works for you. Even more so, support is crucial. But I also found there were a lot of support groups out there, but it was more like the Ain't It Awful Club. Like you share what's going on with you and you're like, oh, you think that's bad. And this is what happened to me. And this is what happened to me. It's like, what the heck is that doing to help you lift and inspire, So we have a very unique support system within the community where it is all about lifting and inspiring. It's all forward moving.
Lifting, inspiring, and moving forward. And just like that negative, toxic behavior, healing is also contagious. You talk about how your students not only transform their own lives, but the lives of others. In what way are they doing that?
This is so crazy how often it happens. But as someone moves through the stages, if they're a coach or a healer or a doctor, therapist, psychiatrist, a counselor, whatever, they very often want to become certified coaches and practitioners because you can't help but want to share this when you see that you've moved through the stages and you're like, oh my gosh, look what it did for me. How do I not, share that with others? And it's actually a really good hack to keep you on your game. When you represent the work, you can't afford to go down and stay down those rabbit holes. So that's a pretty consistent thing. A lot of them become, if they're already qualified to pursue that, they become our coaches and practitioners. And then others, I've seen new businesses, new relationships. We've had people move. We've had people to completely revamp their health. It's so exciting.
And none of it could have happened without betrayal.
That's it. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's the truth.
Yeah. And not everyone will end up back with their partner and
not at all.
And that's okay because they'll end up with the new them.
Well, that's the thing. And we teach you, how do you know if it's safe and in your best interest to heal and rebuild or to heal and move on? It is crystal clear.
If somebody were wondering, okay, this happened, is that possible to get back together? What kind of work did you see him doing that made it clear for you?
Our situation may have been a bit unique. I don't know. He was actually the one who told my kids. And if anything is going to have you wake up and realize what matters, it's losing everyone that matters. There's may have been something about your 4 teenagers looking at you like, you did what to mom? And so that hit him hard. He lost me, he lost them. And rebuilding a new relationship with each of them and with me, was something that he took on. And to this day, he has a bunch of guys who work in his office, and he sits down the younger guys and tells them how not to screw up their life and really pays it forward. He even called all my friends and apologized. I talk all about it in Trust Again, but that's someone who truly took this opportunity seriously. And that was without any idea if we were going to get back together, because I wasn't planning on it. I really wasn't. But then think about this, even with Trust Again, I sat everybody down and I was like, the whole story's in here. And I thought for sure my kids would be like, oh, come on, mom, and they were totally behind me. My biggest supporter is my husband. He's like, you know what? You're going to help so many people. And you're also going to show them that betrayers can and do change. And for him to be as behind the Institute and the awareness, it takes a very transformed person to be okay with that.
Absolutely. There's so many opportunities, especially in our 40s, 50s, 60s, beyond, to become who we truly are capable of becoming. And unfortunately, you're going to have to go through some stuff in order to get there. But the other side, it just feels magical in a way.
Hard now, easy later.
Hard now, easy later. Thank you so much, Dr. Debi Silber, for sharing your brilliance today. I will link to all of the books, her website, everything in the show notes. And I'm willing to bet you have a friend or family member who would benefit from this episode. I encourage you to please share it. The more we can talk about betrayal together, the more we can be vulnerable about our shared experiences, the better off we all will be as a collective. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to visit our website, grownasswoman.guide, for all of the episodes, blog posts, ways for you to support grown-ass woman-owned businesses, to connect with our partners. There is so much great stuff on grownasswoman.guide. Until next time, you are a grown-ass woman. Act accordingly. Spring has sprung. And with the change of seasons, sometimes comes an increase in vitality. If you're feeling in the mood for a little more personal time, may I suggest Coconut. Coconut is all about providing clean and natural ingredients when you're enjoying your most intimate moments, with or without a partner. Naturally safe products developed by people who are obsessed with quality. Get 15% off with promo code GROWNASS at grownasswoman.guide/Coconut. That's 15% off with promo code GROWNASS at grownasswoman.guide/Coconut.